Pretty much every modern browser available today supports autofill, which lets users easily fill in form fields using values that were previously entered and then saved by the browser. In this example, we're going to see how to mark up a form to help the browser identify fields that can be autofilled and what data should go in those fields. Now, each browser has its own set of heuristics that are used to determine where each saved value should be inserted into the form. But for the most part, this process involves looking at the name and autocomplete attributes for each input field. So you can see here in the browser, I've got the documentation for the autocomplete attribute at the Mozilla Developer Network. And if I scroll down a little bit, you can see that there's a comprehensive set of attribute values that you can use to identify form fields for specific types of data, such as names, addresses, there's some credit card information, and so on. Now, I'm not going to cover all of these since there are so many, but I encourage you to take some time after this example and try out some of the ones that we don't look at here. All right, so let's switch over to the code. And if I bring this up in the browser, you can see that the form contains a variety of fields for the user to enter various kinds of personal information. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to the code. And let's start with the first group of fields. So here in the code, I'm going to add the autocomplete attribute to each of these fields to indicate to the browser what information they hold. So for the first one, I'll use autocomplete, and that's going to be name. And then for email, I'll have autocomplete is equal to email. And this one's going to be phone. And then the last one is going to be autocomplete equals street dash address. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. All right, and then let's go back to the browser. So now I'm going to enter some information into the fields, right? So I'll enter my name and my email and my phone, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and my address, 123 Main Street. All right, and then I'm going to click the submit button. All right. Now, note here, I'm using Firefox for this example, so just be aware that if you're using a different browser, you might see results that are slightly different, but they should be comparable. So after I've submitted the information, if I go to fill out the form again and I start to type my name, you can see that Firefox has remembered the information and is now offering to fill it in. So if I select this little guy from the pop-up right here, you can see that the autofill feature takes over and populates the data in this section. It's also filling out some of the forms fields in this section because it's reading the name attributes and it's taking a guess as to which parts of the data up here should go into these form fields. And we'll get to this section in just a moment. Now, autofill can record information that is much more granular than this. So let's go ahead and give that a try. So back to the code. So let's just scroll down to the second part of the form here. And this is the more granular name and address information. So let's go ahead and scroll up a little bit. There we go. All right, and we'll scroll over. So certain kinds of information, such as names, addresses, telephone numbers, things like that, are composed of multiple pieces of information. So for example, a person's name might consist of a first name, a middle name, and a family name. So let's go ahead and add those to the form. Now you can see that in the name attribute, I've already got F name, M name, L name, and that's what Firefox was using to make the guess based on the previous input. But we can actually be a little bit more specific. We can say things like, autocomplete equals given name, and that's your first name. And then we can set the middle name to be additional name. And then finally, we can set the family name. Addresses also have a lot of individual parts, such as the street, city, postal code. So let's add those next. So here, for the address line 1, I'm going to set the autocomplete attribute to address line 1. And then for this adder2 field, that one's going to be address line 2. And now let's add the information for the city and the state or the province and so on. Now, in order to be flexible and accommodate the various kinds of address information around the world, these attributes are named as address levels. And each level corresponds to what's known as an administrative level, which can vary based on country. So, for example, the city information is address level 2. And the state or province is level 1. And then we have the postal code. And by the way, you can refer to the online documentation to learn more about administrative levels and what they correspond to. So we'll put in the postal code. All right, so now let's save our updated form. All right, so we save, and let's go back to the browser and try this out. All right, so let me reset this. And then once again, I'm going to enter some information. So Joe X Marini, and it's 123 Main Street. And that is in Anytown, California. And the postal code is going to be just a bunch of 9s. Oh, actually, I'll put in just Suite 100 for the address line 2, just to make sure we don't leave it blank. Click Submit. Okay. And now I'll go to enter it again. And once again, now you can see I've got a couple of different options to choose from. And one is more specific than the other. So I'll choose that one, right? And you can see that the browser has remembered the data. So what's nice about autofill is that you can use it for more than just names and addresses. So for example, most browsers today allow users to store their passwords to make them easy to enter in their favorite applications. So let's go back to the code and let's try an experiment with the password section down here. So autofill provides values to indicate inputs where the user can enter their current password for a given app, as well as where they can enter a new password and then confirm that password. So let's go ahead and try that out. So I'm going to set this autocomplete to be current password. And then this one I will set to be new password. And then this one will also be new password. And that's the confirmation field. So, all right, one more time. Let's go ahead and save this. And then let's go back to the browser. All right, and let's refresh. And we'll reset the form. And now when I click in the current password field, right, you can see that there's no suggestion since I haven't saved one yet. When I put the focus in the new password field, I get the ability to use an auto-generated one. So I'll go ahead and say, sure, let's use that. And you can see that when I do that, both of the fields, the new password and the confirmation field, are both automatically populated. Okay, so I'll go ahead and submit now. And now when the form reloads, see how the current password field is now being populated because now I have a saved password for this site. And again, your experience may be slightly different based on the browser. Okay, so that's a quick introduction to the autocomplete attribute and some of the more common data values. And I would suggest taking some time here to try out some of the ones that we didn't cover to see how they work.